Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. We have a great Friday show as we head into the weekend. First, what would you do after killing 4 people? Well, make a Costco run if you're Bryan Kohberger. We've got some new video. An Alabama man is charged with threatening the mother following discovery of a relationship with her teenage daughter. That musician guy, David, spells it with a 4. Some weird connections in his case. Things are getting a little more bizarre as things go on. It turns out it was Travis after all. A man decided to spill the beans on how he personally ended the lives of his aging parents. Something you don't see every day. The former FBI director gets indicted. We've got This Day in Legal History, our quote of the day, and wait for our dumb criminal. You won't believe it. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't. Like if you do. Leave me a comment below. Hit that little bell for notifications. And yes, you can check us out anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. A couple of announcements before we get going. Next week, I will be traveling on the road, but we'll still be bringing you shows. Where are we going, you might ask? Well, we're going to Como, Italy. Why? Well, as I've told you before, if you've been around for a while, my son is a pilot in the Air Force, and they're getting married. He and his lovely bride are getting married, and it's going to be great. So I'll be there next week, but I'll be bringing you a show because, that's what we do. All right. We bring you the latest news as it relates to true crime news anywhere in the world. So please join us. And if I get permission, I'll put up a few photos as well. Also, let's remind you to go to crimetalksearch.com, sign up for that background subscription service. When you do, you'll be able to do as many background searches as your heart desires. All right. And you're going to get a report literally emailed to you while you wait. And it's going to have information regarding social media presence, emails, phone numbers. You're going to find out if somebody has a criminal history. Are they married, divorced? Go check it out. Go see if they're on a, sex offender registry. There's some stories we'll talk about today. I think, wow, they should have gone to crimetalksearch.com and checked that out before it got to where it did. Do it today. You'll be happy that you did. Couple of other quick announcements before we get rolling as well. Let me remind you, if you would like to get yourself a Crime Talk keychain, I'm going to put one on my backpack so I know that that's my backpack as I'm traveling to Italy this afternoon. They're great. They're keychains. They're going to last forever, and they're really inexpensive. So go to the link below and order that up as well. Only $5, ladies and gentlemen. Go check it out when you go to the link also. And if you haven't got your baked in Colorado CBD dog treats, if you love your animal like everybody does, you want to give them the best. CBD, right? They take out all the bad stuff and they give nothing but the good stuff. CBD dog treats baked in Colorado. Same page in the link below. All right, so let's go ahead and open the docket for Friday, September 26, 2025. And like I said, what do you do after you kill 4 people? How about make a quick Costco run if you're Bryan Kohberger? That's right. Bryan Kohberger, the man convicted in the Idaho murders, was observed at a Costco store shortly after the fatal stabbings of the 4 University of Idaho students. Surveillance video depicts the 30-year-old, who was previously a criminology student, entering the retail location on the morning of November 14th, mere hours following the incident. Now, the previous evening, Kohberger had unlawfully entered a residence of the 4 college students of Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, whereupon he inflicted lethal stab wounds on all. So this recording captures Kohberger approaching the members-only warehouse where he is momentarily addressed by a staff member. Dressed in a collared shirt and a gray trouser, Kohberger engaged in what appears to be a courteous conversation with the employee before departing without incident. In the footage, he holds a water bottle in one hand while placing the other in his pocket, which may have been an effort to obscure any wound incurred during the assault. Now, the potential significance of Kohberger concealing his left hand is reportedly has a bandage covering up a cut. That same morning, Kohberger was also sighted operating his white Hyundai Elantra near the neighborhood coffee establishment, though he did not enter to make a purchase and soon departed the area. Subsequently, in the afternoon, he appeared in a grocery store where he completed a beverage transaction at a self-service register. And these newly released videos emerges several months after Kohberger entered a guilty plea to the charges following an extended period of asserting that he was innocent and he wanted his trial. By opting for the plea agreements and foregoing the trial, Kohberger was spared the death penalty, and ultimately he did not disclose any rationale for his violent acts. Now, the arrangement for his plea imposed the 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus another decade-long sentence for the burglary. Through this resolution, obviously, Kohberger evaded capital punishment and is now confined at the Idaho Maximum Security institution. And, well, it doesn't sound like things are going that well because Kohberger has voiced dissatisfaction with the meals provided and the alleged mistreatment by other prisoners. Also, there's documents obtained that reveal that on July 30th, he submitted grievances alleging that inmates were intentionally causing floods in their cells, which resulted in the flooding of his cell, and a lot of verbal intimidation. I don't know, Brian, why don't you go, get a knife or something, get a shake and take care of it. Anyway, in subsequent reports, he claimed to have faced threats of sexual violence. In prison? Oh my. Now, we're certainly not, encouraging any of that. Seriously, we're not. That's a crime. We wouldn't do that. But that's what happens in prison. I hate to break it to you, ladies and gentlemen. All that stuff, those bad things that you hear about prison, they're true. All right. I've mentioned this story maybe once or twice. I was going years and years and years ago, going through, client, and all of a sudden there's this sexual offense on this guy. And this guy was like, some, big dude. And I'm like, oh, there must be a mistake on your criminal background, man. There's no way that this doesn't make sense. Sexual assault. And it looks at me, he goes, yeah, rape the dude. I'm like, oh, okay, well, we'll just leave it at that. So, that stuff is true. That stuff is true. I have other clients that I said, what do you guys do to pass time? He goes, oh, we were at the place where all the chili mo's or the child molesters were, and they would beat them up in their spare time. It's real. All right. Does it happen every day? Yes, it does. Does it happen to the new guy? Yes. Do they want to see paperwork to see what your charges are? Yes. Okay. So just speak. It's reality. It's not going to be a pleasant time for Bryan Kohberger until he's the old man on the cell block. For now, he's the newbie, and they're going to make life miserable for him. Not to mention he was a high profile guy accused of killing women. Not cool. So, yeah. And as we close up, access to the investigative documents and images from the crime scene remain restricted following legal action by the victims' relatives to maintain their confidentiality. Although we believe they should be turned over, made available, people can choose to look at them if they want to or not. Well, the house where the students resided was demolished using heavy machinery in the aftermath of the event. Let's go shopping. Let's kill 4 people and let's just go shopping. Next on the docket, an Alabama man is charged with threatening a mother following the discovery of a relationship with her teenage daughter. That's right, a 52-year-old individual from Alabama faces allegations of issuing death threats to a woman after she uncovered his involvement in a sexual relationship with her underage daughter. Now, court records indicate that Gregory Ford had been indicted on charges relating to menacing communications. He allegedly informed the mother that he had engaged a professional assassin to eliminate her should she persist in implicating her daughter in a criminal probe concerning sexual offenses against him. The formal accusation was lodged on Wednesday following the threat that occurred on the previous day. According to the FBI, Ford is implicated in engaging in sexual activities with a 15-year-old female residing in the Florence, Alabama area. Police reports indicate that the adolescent commenced employment with Ford sometime in the last year. And although Ford resides in Texas, He operates as a mobile veterinary specialist attending equestrian events and competitions in Alabama. The probe commenced when the mother identified explicit sexual exchanges on her daughter's phone. The young woman subsequently disclosed to investigators that she had participated in intimate encounters with Ford and shared some, explicit images with him as well. Anyway, Prim Escolana, the United States Attorney for the Northern Alabama district there, commended the parents' decision to alert law enforcement upon identifying a potential exploiter in child's environments. Predator sees every chance to victimize our youth, the U.S. Attorney noted, and it's essential that the public remains aware and consistently alert of such risks. Investigators allege that Ford transmitted a hostile message to the mother via an anonymous phone number stating, quote, "Listen to your daughter and our love story. She is my soulmate," end quote. Because yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know 15-year-olds dig nothing more than old 50-something-year-old guys, right? No, they don't. Anyway, the good doctor followed by claims that she had absolutely humiliated, broken, and shamed the most perfect of God's creations. This is on you, not me. She and I would just have to wait to run off together at 18 anyway. Anyway, the situation escalated a little further with some threats. Ford reportedly warned, quote, "If you choose to continue your crusade, I have already paid a dear friend from the CIA to long rifle a bullet in your chest," end quote. I would say that's a true threat, wouldn't you? Anyway, the U.S. Attorney noted that the local police in Alabama are actively ensuring the mother's security as the investigation continues. The police noted our priority is to safeguard the mother to the fullest extent and to detain the suspect expeditiously. Swift action included evaluating charges in an active case, suggesting additional developments may arise. Mr. Ford was apprehended in Florida on Wednesday and now faces charges of sexual assault, though it remains uncertain if this relates to the current matter. I'm going to guess they do. The Lauderdale County Sheriff's Office has indicated that the further charges are anticipated on their part. And what can you say, ladies and gentlemen? Like I said, I know every 15-year-old girl, their dream boat is some 50-year-old guy. Take a look at this guy. Do you think that's some 15-year-old dream? No, it's not. All right. Clearly some issues going on there. But when you've got a 35-year age, 45-year age difference, not cool. That's just sex assault on a child, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? They're not going to be able to run away when they're 18 because although he's entitled to the presumption of innocence, if he's convicted, he could be going to prison for some time. And you can't have contact with the victim when you're in prison and then later on parole. My guess is the young lady will move on and realize that maybe 50-something-year-old dudes are not her thing anymore. Next on the docket, that musician, David guy that spells his name with a 4. Well, things get a little more bizarre as things go on. So, surveillance footage captured 2 individuals wearing masks patrolling the exterior of the Hollywood Hills property recently vacated by singer David, spelled with a 4, shortly following a police search of the site for evidence related to the dismembered body of a young girl discovered in his car. Now, video depict this unusual activity while workers from a moving company moved furnishings and personal items from the $4.1 million rental into the moving truck. Now, these developments coincide with emerging claims regarding David with a 4 and his association with the victim, including allegations that their initial online interaction occurred when she was only 12 years old. Now, the 2 men, who seemed to serve as private security personnel, maintained their vigilance during the relocation of the items process. Now, they obscured their identities with eyewear and face coverings, and one wore a protective garment featuring a metallic emblem on his chest. It remains undetermined whether these individuals were affiliated with the moving firm, Roadway Moving, or engaged by another entity. Inquiries have been directed to both Roadway Moving and representatives of David with a 4 for some clarification. Anyway, the property owner informed the press that the area benefits from robust security measures, including regular monitoring. The landlord also indicated he was unaware that David with a 4, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke, had been residing there until the previous week. The lease was $20,000 per month, and it was secured under the name of Burke's manager starting in February of 2024. Now, earlier this week, it became known that the manager terminated the rental agreement suddenly after detectives from Los Angeles Police Department Homicide Division conducted a search in relation to the demise of Celeste Rivas Hernandez, the missing adolescent whose fragmented remains were located in the front storage compartment of Burke's Tesla on September 8th. Now, the landlord noted that the decision to vacate stemmed from the surrounding events, as the occupants no longer wished to remain. Details of items recovered during the inspection have not been officially disclosed, but a prior statement from the LA Police Department mentioned the retrieval of various evidentiary materials that are obviously going to be subject to examination. No further progress reports have been released by the police department. As of now, there have been no detentions and no individuals have officially been designated as suspects or persons of interest. When questioned this past week, a department spokesperson stated that the inquiry continues without new developments and refrained from discussing Burke's level of involvement with police. Now, the 20-year-old artist was on tour in the United States, performing dates for his Withered World Tour at the time that the body was discovered. Police responded to reports of an offensive odor emanating from the forward compartment of Burke's towed Tesla Model Y at a storage facility in Hollywood, leading to the finding of Celeste's dismembered remains encased in plastic in the trunk of the car. Now, Celeste had been declared missing from her residence back in May of 2024 at the age of 13. Her body was uncovered one day following what would have marked her 15th birthday, with indications suggesting she passed away earlier. Representatives from Burke's entourage initially asserted full cooperation with investigators post-discovery. However, subsequent identification of the remains prompted silence from the musician's team. And Burke's international tour was subsequently discontinued without any fanfare, and he has engaged legal counsel, who has not provided any statements or responded to any outreach to anybody. Police are endeavoring to ascertain the timeline and circumstances of Celeste's death, as well as account for the period from her disappearance in May of 2024 to the recovery of her remains 16 months later. Family members report that they last saw Celeste on May 4th of 2024 when she departed to attend a film screening with Burke and failed to return home. Two individuals acquainted with Celeste informed the press that an alleged inappropriate relationship between her and Burke, with one source specifying that contact began via online platforms like Twitch during her preteen years. Celeste's brother, a guy by the name of Matthew Rivas, mentioned to media outlets that the family knew of the purported connection, noting Burke's frequent use of the same Tesla that transported her and, came and picked her up. And records indicate Celeste absconded from home on at least 3 occasions in the initial months of 2024, prior to her permanent absence in May. Now, it's alleged that Celeste maintained communications with peers through messaging and calls for over a year after being reported missing, but all interactions ceased abruptly about late July or early August of this year. Various photographs circulating on social media appeared to depict Celeste and Burke together during her missing period. One video from late August 2025 concert showed a female resembling Celeste, though a source has clarified that it was not her. Investigators are examining the specific of Burke's interactions with Celeste, and both police and family have verified that Celeste bore a SH tattoo. Yeah, that's right, SHHA tattoo in red on her right index finger, identical to the one on Burke. And then we got the online investigators have also identified a supposed unfinished unfinished track by Burke titled Celeste Demo Unfin, with unverified lyrics referencing a person named Celeste, allegedly recorded in December of 2023. Now, the discovery of a dismembered body in one's vehicle, combined with other details, strongly warrants some imminent action, you would think. Well, nothing as of yet. Burke has not addressed the incident publicly, and his vehicle was left unattended near the Doheny, Doheny Place and Bluebird Avenue, the proximate to the rental that he had for several days. Local residents have stated that the car had been observed in the vicinity intermittently over recent months, with its last location being stationary for approximately 3 weeks, and earlier spots dated back to late May. Multiple attempts to obtain statements from Burks and his team have gone unanswered. The artist gained his prominence on TikTok in 2022 and appeared on Jimmy Kimmel in November of 2023 at the age of 18. We're going to follow that one. I would expect an arrest sometime soon, wouldn't you? I don't know. I think even the Bryan Kohberger mug that was given to us by a subscriber who did not want to be identified, look at that face of disgust. He thinks there should be an arrest sooner. Anyway, it was Travis after all. Remember the big story we had yesterday? Oh my gosh. The feds said that the remains found of Mr. Travis, the man charged with the death of his daughters, that it was him. Then the local authorities came and said, no, we can't confirm anything. And then guess what? Police have confirmed the human remains found in the Washington wilderness belong to the military veteran believed to have killed his 3 young daughters at the local campground. That's right. The discovery marks the end of the 3-month manhunt for Travis Decker, the man who killed his 3 daughters, Paitlin, who was 9, Evelyn, who was 8, and Olivia, who was only 5, at a campground back on June 2nd. All right. So mystery solved. I hate when everybody can't get their act together. Everybody knew it was going to be him, unless, like we hypothesized yesterday, well, maybe he got the remains of somebody else and put his clothes in those remains to throw them off. Guess it turns out Mr. Decker wasn't the great survivalist that everybody thought he was. You know, everybody thinks that just because you went into the military, somehow you can go live and forage off the land for months at a time and, you know, live in the wilderness. No, there's a lot of pogues out there that can't do that. Those are the kind of guys, you know, they kept their rear back with the gear, so to speak. Not everybody, you know, is some special operator in the military, ladies and gentlemen. Clearly, Mr. Decker was not. The only question is, how did he die? Do you kind of hope it was maybe just a little bit painful since he did kill his 3 young children? I know that's probably not the nice thing to say, but I mean, he did kill his own kids, for God's sakes. That's not a good dad, ladies and gentlemen. And if anybody thinks that's a good dad, you may want to reevaluate your thinking on what a good dad may be. Next, how about a guy who goes on TV and tells how he got rid of his parents? Yes, that's right. Here we go. So, in what must have been the most delightfully shocking segment to grace morning television, 53-year-old Lorenz Krauss decided to spill the beans on how he permanently ended the lives of his aging parents, Franz and Teresa Krauss, before giving them a quaint backyard send-off. Now, this gem of a confession unfolded in a relaxed sit-down at CBS 6 Greg Floyd mere hours after authorities poked around the family abode in Albany, New York, sniffing out some shady financial dealings. Now, the parents, who might have been enjoying their golden years at 92 and 83, had fate, or rather their son, not intervened, apparently vanished back in 2017. Now, police swooped in on Tuesday for that warrant, unearthed one body in the yard by Wednesday, and fished out more bones the next day. Albany Police's Brendan Cox mentioned in a briefing that after chatting with Krauss, the man himself reached out to the station for his big reveal, turning what could have been a fully lifestyle spot into a macabre monologue. So here it is. All the cozy vibes of a feel-good interview, complete with probing questions, but laced with details that would make even the most jaded viewer choke on their coffee. Krause nonchalantly described smothering his father by hand around August of 2017, then wrapped things up with a rope for his mother shortly thereafter. When pressed on whether his parents had outright begged for this favor, Krause offered the profound insight that it was all implied, if not spelled out. Apparently, after his sister's passing, Mom kept handing over do not resuscitate forms amid her sorrow, and both were showing signs of decline, like Dad's fuzzy eyesight and hearing aids and Mom's spotty driving habits. Oh, and let's not forget the family's supposed telepathic bond, because why rely on actual words when mind reading does the trick? So Floyd, keeping his composure like a pro, pointed out that most rational souls wouldn't interpret a missed turn signal as a death warrant. Undeterred, Krause elaborated on Mom's pedestrian mishaps and Dad's post-surgery driving ban, insisting the acts were mercifully swift. He took out Dad first, leaving Mom to grieve briefly before her turn. Days later, inspiration struck. Why not intern them right there on the premises? Reflecting on the moment, Krause emphasized efficiency over emotion. No dilly-dallying, just getting the job done. He even quipped that authorities might label him a bungling fool. On the topic of resistance, he claimed it was minimal, with both passing quicker than expected. To cover his tracks, he spun a yarn to neighbors about a relocation to Germany, Mom's homeland. He dodged some questions by pleading the fifth, but freely admitted knowing it was illegal, then veered into a tirade about how millions of aging baby boomers face grim ends anyway. As for pocketing their Social Security checks, Krause proudly declared he'd funneled it to the needy in the Philippines, framing it as a noble redistribution rather than, say, freeloading off the deceased. Floyd suggested some might call it tainted funds. Krause countered that he was simply passing it on, not hoarding it for himself. So I guess that makes it okay. He waxed poetic about ancient warriors dying honorably and indigenous practices of easing suffering, only for Floyd to dryly note that bedrooms aren't battlefields and pillows or hands and ropes aren't exactly heroic weapons. Krause clarified the methods again, insisting no regrets. He's fulfilled his obligations in a world full of horrors. Now, Floyd inquired about mental health issues or substances, and Krause denied both, though he admitted to mild fatigue and a brief pause on meds. The timeline? Well, a few hours between deaths, then days before the burial. It was a wild detour. He dragged in the ex-governor Andrew Cuomo's pandemic mishaps, implying negligence there equated to his own deeds, prompting Floyd to remind him that political blunders don't involve personal strangulations. Krause floated the idea of age-related homicide as a legal category, predicting the fuss would fade and offering vague amends. Floyd, ever the voice of reason, snapped back that murdering one's parents isn't something that just blows over. Krause shrugged it off and nodded to the political wheeling dealings, denying any violence. Wrapping up, he requested the footage go viral on YouTube and handed over a public statement. Post-interview, he strolled out straight into waiting handcuffs. Charges, 2 counts each of second-degree murder and hiding bodies. Police noted that the financial probe revealed he'd been living off of their benefits. So apparently the small children in the Philippines didn't get it after all. A peek at his online presence uncovers a treasure trove of fringe ideologies, shares from neo-Nazi forums, apparent nods to historical tyrants like Hitler, rants on immigration, and even flat earth nonsense. Put that in, you can't make this up. Let's go on television and tell how we killed our parents, ladies and gentlemen. Next, something you don't see every day. That's right, the former FBI director gets indicted. So, on September 25th, yesterday, former FBI Director James Comey was indicted on charges of providing false statements to Congress and obstructing a congressional proceedings. I thought that's what all the bureaucratic agencies did to Congress, right? Isn't that what they do? Oh, I don't recall. I don't remember. Yeah, I didn't do that. Well, it looks like maybe the tides are changing when it comes to these types of prosecutions. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, this development occurred shortly after President Donald Trump publicly encouraged his attorney general to pursue legal actions against Comey and other individuals that he views as political adversaries. Now, if you look at the tweet, he said, "Hey, Pam, what are we doing? Are we going to charge some people or not?" I'm paraphrasing, but that was generally the tweet. He didn't specifically say, you have to charge this person with some bogus crime. Remember, this went to a grand jury. There were 3 charges presented to the grand jury, became a part of the indictment. So anyway, this marks the first instance in which a high-ranking former official connected in the 2016 investigation into the Russian election interference, a matter that has long been a point of contention for Trump, has faced criminal charges. Despite repeated assertions by Trump that the probe was unfounded and politically motivated, various officials' assessments have confirmed the Russian efforts to influence the election in favor of this campaign. That's what some people say, and other people say, no, that's not true. In fact, there you can go into the whole Russian dossier that was paid for by Hillary Clinton through her people, but it doesn't really matter. This is a focus on him lying to Congress on very specific questions. And what the interesting part is that his own chief of staff threw him under the bus, and his own inner circle is what's probably going to bring Comey down. Now, this case has intensified apprehensions regarding the potential politicization of the Department of Justice under Attorney Pam Bondi. Gee, I wonder where they said that under Merrick Garland. They didn't, right? Why didn't they say that as it relates to Merrick Garland? I guess if they're going after your opponents, it's justice. And if they're coming after you, well, it's obviously politically motivated. Let the jury decide. And frankly, that's what Mr. Comey has said. He says he's innocent. Let's have a jury. I encourage such things, Mr. Comey. Anyway, the president responded to the indictment by describing it as a victory for national justice. And Pam Bondi, a close ally, and FBI Director Kash Patel, who have previously criticized the Russia inquiry, echoed similar sentiments, emphasizing that legal accountability applies to all. As you may recall, that's all we ever heard when they indicted President Trump was, nobody's above the law. Nobody's above the law, which I get it. Nobody should be. So we're going to find out, because obviously this indictment was done about 3 days before the statute of limitation was to run. Now, if I remember correctly, Trump's only been in office for the last 8 months, and the previous administration could have been indicting him over the last 4 years. Apparently, nobody thought it was worthwhile doing that because, right, nobody ever gets indicted in D.C. Anyway, in a recorded statement following the indictment, Comey expressed profound disappointment in the Justice Department's direction, but affirmed his faith in the judicial process, maintaining his innocence and calling for a trial. Now, Comey, dismissed early in Trump's initial term, has remained a focal point of those seeking accountability related to the Russia investigation. He was explicitly mentioned in a recent social media message from Trump, which appeared to pressure Bondi to initiate charges, highlighting frustration over the lack of prosecution against people where he thought that there should be some charges brought. The indictment was issued by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, which recently experienced significant internal disruptions. The previous chief prosecutor resigned amid reported pressure to target other Trump adversaries and was swiftly replaced by Lindsey Halligan, a former White House aide and Trump attorney lacking prior prosecutorial experience. Now, I know that they're going to make a big brouhaha saying she was appointed the United States attorney. She doesn't have any experience. Ladies and gentlemen, most United States attorneys are political appointees. They don't go try cases themselves. Most of them maybe did a short stint in a prosecutor role, but most of them haven't seen the inside of a courtroom in 20 years. So don't get wrapped around the wheel on that. But they have prosecutors that'll go try this case. And remember, the grand jury indicted. It wasn't like they just said, let's go do this. they presented to a grand jury who rejected one of the counts. So obviously the grand jury thought that there was sufficient evidence for the case to go forward. Now, obviously, Mr. Comey is entitled to the presumption of innocence, and he can have his day in court. But like I said, the question is revolving around Comey being asked specific questions, whether he authorized leaks by individuals in his office to go to the New York Times. Well, guess what? Comey said, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't authorize it. But his own chief of staff and the guy that did the leak said it came straight from Comey. So his own inner circle, what do we always say? The threat of imminent incarceration tends to break the bonds of loyalty. Right, ladies and gentlemen? They're like, hey, James, you're a swell guy and all, but I'm not going to prison for you. Now, this charge carries up to 5 years. But he's not going to get probation if he's convicted. Who knows? Maybe the jury will find him not guilty, ladies and gentlemen. We'll just have to wait and see. Next on the docket, this day in legal history. On September 26th, 1789, John Jay was commissioned as the first Chief Justice of the United States following confirmation by the Senate. On this date, also in 1789, Edmund Randolph becomes the first United States Attorney General, establishing a key federal legal advisory role. On this date in 1978, the New York District Court Judge Constant Baker Motley rules that women sports writers cannot be banned from locker rooms for sporting events. On this date, September 26, 1986, Antonin Scalia is sworn in as an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. On this date in 1986, William Hubbs Rehnquist is sworn in as Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And on this date in 2007, U.S. District Court Judge Ann Aiken rules the sneak and peek provisions of the Patriot Act unconstitutionally are applied in the Brandon Mayfield case. Well, lots of things should be illegal under the Patriot Act, but what can you do? Next, our legal quote of the day. Rights are lost by disuse. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? It means use it or lose it. And it's a Latin legal phrase. Use it or use it. Exercise your rights, ladies and gentlemen, or you will lose them. And finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Oh, how utterly brilliant. A gentleman from Florida decided to craft firearms using a 3D printer because what could possibly go wrong with that ingenious pastime? Allow me to introduce our shining exemplar of poor judgment, the recipient of today's unofficial award for the most astoundingly foolish offender and our dumb criminal of the day. One would assume that fabricating weapons at home might warrant a touch of discretion, but not for this enterprising young individual. According to the reports, Patrick Carmen actually contacted police to complain that several of his homemade guns had been pilfered from his residence, boldly pointing the finger at his girlfriend because naturally alerting the police to your own illicit arsenal is the pinnacle of strategic thinking. It turns out that reporting the theft of your illegally produced firearms is, shockingly, but not the wisest course of action. You essentially are confessing to a crime while inviting scrutiny and, as a bonus, earning yourself a spot in the Hall of Fame of spectacular blunders. Carmen graciously admitted to the police officers that he had whipped up these guns as a delightful hobby, which I'm certain will endear him to the court. Certainly detained, he faces charges of possessing firearms and ammunition as a convicted felon. Of course he was. What a splendid outcome for such a fun project. Truly a master class in self-sabotage. That's like a drug dealer calling to say that drug user saying that he was sold bunk when he thought they were getting the good drugs. Anyway, sir, you are our dumb criminal of the day, Mr. Carmen. Congratulations. You made it. Add this to your CV, your resume. Felon, gun manufacturer, dumb criminal of the day. You made it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend. As I said, we will see you next week from Como, Italy. Hope you enjoy the weekend. And remember, The Constitution matters.